Okay, welcome everybody. Our chairman is out today, so we'll continue without him. Welcome to the Planning and Zoning meeting for April 24th, 2019. April 24th, I'm sorry, May the 22nd. I was looking at our minutes. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If we would have the minutes for April 24th meeting.
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes.
Okay, have a motion to approve.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Okay, motion carries. Financial report, we have a,
Yep, I'll just make a comment on that. That's in your packet. Finance report is in the packet, but I want to point something out. On page 2 of the finance report, we're in April, so just so you guys can actually look at this later if you want, but as a target, 83% is where we'd want to be on all those percentages on the right. And you can see our revenues are at 96% through April. And our budget chairman and myself were just talking before the meeting, Terry, and we had a big month of May, so we've actually exceeded the 100% mark through May. So we're in good shape on revenues. Again, for the expense categories, you can see all of them are staying in line with the 83%. Personnel stays right on target, but all the others are well below the 83% after 10 months of finance. So I'd be glad to answer any questions about anything specifically in the finance report. And of course, you guys will get this every month. And then we'll have to adopt a final budget before July 1 or right after the first year. So if you guys have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
any questions? Thank you. Construction sureties.
We need a motion.
Oh, do we have
second.
that motion?
Vote on
Okay.
financial report.
Motion
I'll make a motion to
to
approve.
approve the financial report. Motion, got a motion, got a second, all in favor? Motion carries. Okay, construction sureties.
It's in your packet as a courtesy every month. No real updates other than the city public works guys are working on 3 of those items. Maple Trees, Center Estates, Section 2, and Fox Harbor. They tell me they'll be done soon or hopefully end of summer, but I hadn't started on any of them. They're buying product on some of them, but City Public Works is going to finish those up on our behalf, and then we'll write the check to the city. There's no action needed on that.
All right, subdivision approvals. We have McAnly Design, or McAnly Nelson Design and Construction LLC and Michael McAfee.
Yep.
A
Yep.
subdivision tract, or
Yep. Alrighty, I think all the engineers and surveyors are here, I believe, that for all these plats. Maybe one that's not. But all 7 of these went through technical review a couple weeks back. All met the requirements. All were given preliminary approval and signed as preliminary approved. And you guys are reviewing them for final approval. And I'll be glad to walk you through each one, or again, you guys can look at them as a group, whatever you want. And then the surveyors are here, engineer firm, so you may have some questions for them. The first one is a messy plat, as they get sometimes. There's a lot happening here. These first plats are Vantage and Kendall's here, but it's really more straightforward if you drill down and look at what's happening. This is on Goggin and Kemper, and we're creating tracks A, B, C, D, and E. And track B, that's a little sliver that's on Goggin, is being added to Michael McAfee's piece, which is at the bottom of the plat on the southernmost side. We're adding that sliver. And then at the same time, we're creating 4 large 5-acre plus tracts on the rest of the farm. And you can kind of see all the lots. They're labeled well. You just got to look down there. You can see Lot A starts on the east side, and you just kind of go counterclockwise. You see lots B, then C, South, D. You can kind of see all the lots we're creating. There's not too much to it. It's zoned AR1 or agriculture. Again, GRA. It's zoned residential, but they're still doing large 5+ acre tracts. They could be much smaller with the GRA. But the main focus of this, again, is selling this sliver to Michael McAfee's property that you see is kind of odd shaped on the southern side.
Okay.
Kendall's here if you guys have any questions. And again, went through technical review.
Anybody have any questions?
There may be, this one had some comments at technical review too.
Please identify yourself, your name and address, please.
Neil Eklund on Winterhawk Road. When I moved here, shortly after I moved here, I asked people why the development along Goggin Lane didn't continue. And the comment made was that none of that property passed the PERT test. And so I'm a little concerned for that reason. If it's going to be developed, how are they going to deal with the PERT test? Thank you.
Preliminary site evaluations are a responsibility of the buyer ultimately to make sure that if they buy a lot, that the septic will work.
They can't get a permit without a septic.
Yeah, they'll have to get a permit.
You can't get a building permit without a septic permit. Okay.
And again, we're creating big lots, 5 acre plus, some of them in GRA. Mr. McAfee's house is already there, and there's already a property on Kemper that we're adding a little sliver to. So those 2 lots are already have structures on it. Those new lots that's being referred to could be sold. I'm not sure that's the plan at this point. It was just to kind of carve up the farm in a certain configuration, and ultimately they may be offered for sale. They may just be continued to be farmed or maintained in the condition they are.
Have a motion?
I move we approve.
Motion to approve.
I second.
Second by Vince. All in favor? Pass. All right. Number 2, Irene Pennington Estate. Subdivision plat, land containing approximately 83.065 acres, located on 1999 Cream Ridge Road. Property is zoned agricultural.
That's pretty much it right there. It's consolidation plat, 2 lots being merged into one to create that 83 plus acre tract on Cream Ridge. Again, zoned agriculture. Not too much to report on this one. Just typical consolidation farm plat. Kendall's here if you guys have any questions. Its frontage is there on the curve on Cream Ridge. You can see up by the north arrow at the top of the plat, top right side of the plat. And again, there were no issues with our subdivision regs and the standards to review the plat. Anyone add, Kendall?
Any questions? We have a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Susan makes a motion. Got a second? Wendy seconds. All in favor? Unanimous. Motion passes. All right, number 3, Joedy Sharpe Construction Company has applied for approval for subdivision on tract of land containing approximately 2.135 acres located at 0 Hunt Farm Road, property zone GRA.
Alrighty, the next 2 plats are Hunt Farm, and really we're not doing a whole lot. I know we've talked about this property and this subdivision related to some bond issues, but what we're doing is we come into the front of the subdivision off Buster Pike. We're just doing a lot line revision. If you're looking at your plat, which would be the right side of the plat, lots 1 and 2 are just being revised. There's still 2 lots, and we're just moving the lot line and changing the way the lots are shaped. So this is just a revision. On the left side of the plat, on the other side of Hunt Farm Road, we're consolidating some lots and reestablishing some easements on that corner there. So there's nothing really new in this plat. There are already existing lots that have been platted, and we're just revising the 2 sides of the street and the front portion of the subdivision. Mr. Sharpe's here if you have any questions. The engineer's here, and again, technical review looked at it. Everything looked good that we needed.
I have a question, please.
Okay. Please introduce yourself.
Yes, sir. Ann Ferguson, Kings Mill Road. Recent edition of Harrington Lake Living had an article about Hunt Farm, and it mentioned in there that one of the attractions of building in Hunt Farm is the access to the city of Danville sewer system. I think there's some kind of structure on 33 that gives Hunt Farm access to the Danville sewer system. I don't know if it's a lift station, pocket plant, what it is, but I'm wondering if that is such an asset to the development of Hunt Farm, what is the relationship between Hunt Farm and the city of Danville sewer?
Would you all like to address that? Please introduce yourself.
I'm Kendall Wise from Vantage Engineering, and the structure she's referring to on 33 it's a city-owned pump station, and the Hunt Farm has gravity sewers that drain to that pump station. So, I don't know, yes, they have public sewer service that's provided by the city of Danville.
One more question then. What happens to the overflow from that lift station, pump station, they always overflow?
Mm-hmm. It's a newer pump station. It should have capacity for emergency overflow. And, you know, as you're describing, it could overflow and go into Mox Creek and.
Does it just flow into the ground?
Oh, no, it's pumped back into the city, into the rest of the city's sewer system. The force main for the pump station comes back along 33 into the city limits.
Thank you.
Okay.
May I say something?
Please
First of all,
introduce yourself.
oh, pardon me. First of all, in order for me to
Introduce yourself,
I'm Joedy Sharpe. For me to access the city sewer, I paid $100,000 for that privilege. Secondly, I provided the location for that pump station. Third, the prison was required to be attached to the Danville City sewer system. So regardless of whether my development was there or not, the pump station was going to happen. And therefore, I took advantage of the opportunity to provide what should have been an environmentally sound method of disposing of waste rather than utilizing a septic system that had been mentioned here before. Thank you.
I'll just add too, there's also a sewer expansion even on Gwen Island that's being worked on right now. They're looking at funding for that to put all the residents on Gwen Island all the way back to the marina on public sanitary sewer also. And some property owners are actually committed financially to partner on that. So I think the ultimate goal is to get as many properties on sanitary sewer as we can. And with that comes development sometimes. But how that all functions and where it goes, that's an engineer would have to explain all that to me. But what we know is Hunt Farms is on sewer out there. Most everything else that you know in that general part of the county is on septic systems. And then Gwen Island Road, we think maybe by the end of summer, end of the year, will all be on sewer as it comes down and connects from the main line. So,
Any other questions? Motion?
I move we approve.
Okay. Jim made a motion to approve, Wendy second. All in favor? Unanimous? Motion passes. Okay, moving on. Joedy Sharpe has applied for approval of a subdivision on tract of land containing approximately 8.299 acres located at 0 Max Cavnes Rd, property zone GRA.
all right, this is on the back side of the subdivision, and this is another plat on Hunt Farm. This one's a little different, and as you remember, we've worked out an agreement with Mr. Sharpe to get the sidewalks constructed through a standing bond escrow we're holding. This is at the very end of that section where we put the hammerhead temporary turnaround. And as you know, we rescinded all the lots that were platted that weren't the 40 lots in sections 1, 2, or 3. This is actually an 8-acre tract back on that section that we rescinded the plat. And it's an ownership issue, changing some LLCs around. And what Mr. Sharpe is wanting to do is put this 8-acre farm tract separate from the rest of the farm. And to cut off that 8 acres, he had to acquire some frontage, so obviously it's shaped in this kind of odd shape to take this part of the farm and put it in a different kind of corporate entity, but yet retain it in agriculture at this time. So, well, it's GRA, I'm sorry. Again, the whole property was zoned residential. There was well over 100 lots platted, 40 lots in the first 3 sections, and then we rescinded the rest of the lots until we could get the first phase completed as far as the roads, sidewalks, et cetera. So we didn't look at this as that big of a problem. It's still not platted to be sold off as single lots. And I guess in theory, someone could build one house on this 8-acre tract and one house on the rest of the farm, but I don't think that's the intention. What I would anticipate is we may see a plat in the near future for a next phase, and then we can talk about where we're at with the sidewalk construction at that point in time. And I went out there this week and looked at the sidewalks, and there's about 5 more houses out there than probably last time we talked about it. Some of the sidewalks are completed. There's still some sections still to go to finish the sidewalk project that we agreed on. And as you guys saw in the bond, or the construction, we're still holding all the money for all the sidewalk project. I don't know if these guys want to add anything about what we're doing here, but it was just, again, the way I understood it was just a ownership entity kind of change on this portion of the farm. You guys got anything you want to add? You have to get up here if there's anything. Sorry.
Here again, I'm Joedy Sharpe. In reference to the remarks that he made about the sidewalks, that is a project that is ongoing. Little Use is there to construct sidewalks on lots that are going to be destroyed during the construction process. Therefore, we have extended the sidewalks in the area where there would be no construction whatsoever to destroy them. Secondly, the homes that have been completed on Max Cavnes Drive have walks in front of them. Within the next 2 months, 3 months, there will be an additional 400 feet of walks installed in that section, with a remaining balance of 300 feet to be installed. And as Steve mentioned, the bond money has not been touched, will not be touched until the project is completed. Therefore, we're well into this project with ample money available to cover any shortfall that may occur. Not that I anticipate any. Thank you.
I'll make a motion, we approve.
Motion's been made to approve. Anyone got a second? All in favor? Unanimous. Motion passes. Number 5, William Hunley has applied for approval of a subdivision on a tract of land containing approximately 10.1 acres located at 0 Nield Road, property zone AR1.
All right. I'll just deviate here for a second. I did orientation for our new planning commissioner this week for Steve, and we talked about the plats, and I described them like watching paint dry. And as you guys know, these are hard, walking through these plats one by one. At any time you guys want to do them as a group, we can do that. But I think it's important to go through them. All the technical things happen at tech review, honestly, and what the staff reviews is a long checklist of items. And this is a perfect example of one of Kendall's plats that had every single item approved, everything was in compliance, and looked good from technical review. I do want to point out something on this plat, though, that's interesting. Nield Road, this is the third plat you guys have seen, maybe in 3 months or 4 months. 10-acre tract, zoned ag, cutting off a lot, pretty cookie cutter as they come. And there's nothing in the zoning ordinance would make this plat a problem or not be permitted. But we have had a lot of complaints about the other 2 lots that we created. And it's an interesting situation. It's filtered to the magistrate, to the county judge. Nield Road, if you've gone out there, is a very narrow county road, like we have a lot of portions of the county, maybe 10 foot. Some were saying they thought it was 8 foot. It's probably 10 to 12, it varies. But we don't have a standard that says we don't cut off lots because it's a 10-foot road or 12-foot road or 14. We say if you're zoned AR1 and you got 5 acres or 1 acre, you can cut off the lot as long as you meet all the technical requirements. The folks that live out there, and it's just a few, we're talking 3 or 4, are upset that we have created additional building lots on this road. It's kind of the argument, hey, we came here first, it's too narrow a road to have any homes, but yet those homes are there, and the new homes, they're worried about this is going to put too much overload on this narrow county road. It can't be addressed really by our subregs because it's not a prohibition, but at some point in the future, road width, capacity of the road, may be something we want to talk about. At what point have we hit a tipping point on the number of homes on a narrow county road for pass-by traffic? The biggest issue is the road is being destroyed by the construction traffic for these new home builds. But we're only talking, these are less than 10 homes, just 4 or 5, and the folks that are there have complained to us in the county that we shouldn't allow any new homes and that the construction traffic's beating up the road. But some of that was related to their construction traffic too, so it's catch-22, absolutely. But it's been brought up, and it is odd. If you guys haven't been out there, I might just encourage you to drive around that part of the county. That is a very narrow county road that is paved, that is in disrepair, and the county's going to put it on the list to eventually fix. And again, there's nothing in our regulations, we can't cut off a 10-acre tract zoned ag. In fact, that's twice the size we'd require. But it'll probably generate more calls next week. And these, again, have gone to fiscal court because the neighbors that are out there upset with the 2 recent plats and now this 3rd one. So just a side note on that. Yes, sir.
But is it a good idea to fix the road now while there's still construction going on? Because it'll cost a lot more money. Because you'll fix it once and then you have to fix it again.
I think the challenge is.
Unless I'm wrong. that's-
Yeah. Well, at this point, it's accepted county roads, county's responsibility.
Okay.
We don't prohibit construction on accepted roads. I think the challenge we have maybe as a planning commission is to think about the standard that we'd want to allow development to occur on what we maybe consider a substandard road width, not the pavement. Stuff gets beat up, it gets beat up, but how narrow is too narrow to, for example, to put 20 homes on a short road? Should 2 cars be able to pass? Should it be at least a minimum of 16 foot or 18 foot? But we do cut off lots on 10 and 8 and 12 foot. As you know, it gets a little tricky passing and that kind of stuff, but we have no tool or provision in our subregs right now that prohibit that. Something we may want to talk about into the future.
Okay, any other questions? Any comments? Got a motion?
Yes. Make the motion.
All right, Wendy makes a motion for approval.
Second.
Vince seconds. All in favor? Motion passes. All right, Eric Hatcher, Bill Blair have applied for approval of subdivision on tract of land containing approximately 1.02 acres located at 1015 Nosco Road, Junction City. Property is zoned AR1.
This is a pretty typical plat. Again, this is a surveyor I haven't seen since I've been here, maybe some of you guys too. This is a out-of-town surveyor out of Richmond, but everything was technically correct. And what we're doing is adding a piece of a farm for Mr. Blair's farm to basically create this 1 acre tract. It has an existing double-wide mobile home. It was on basically a ½ acre. The 1 acre makes it a legal tract as far as the mobile home goes. I'm not sure why that's being conveyed or what the reasoning was, but obviously what we're doing is creating a 1 acre tract when it was smaller, for the mobile home that currently exists on the property that would have been non-conforming. And again, everything's on the plat that we required. It just looks a little different than maybe some, but everything's on there, and I'm glad to answer any questions on it. It's on Nosco Road.
I move we approve.
Okay, got a motion to approve.
Just, one question,
We have a
Yeah,
second.
sure.
just, the parcels are labeled A and B, and then down on the bottom, it says the parcels are 1 and 2. Does that need to be amended, or is that okay the way it is?
Yeah, they
That seems
referenced.
incorrect
I
to
see what
me.
you're saying. Yeah, those are the two owners, and they 1 and 2, and then A and B. Yeah, we'll make a note of that.
Okay,
There was another reference on that too. Let me see where that is.
it's probably in the,
It's in the purpose statement. It says, calls them A and B also. We'll just get that revised. Actually, though, the problem there, Vince, is the parcel B is, they're actually gonna be under the same ownership. So A and B becomes the Hatcher piece technically, and there's actually 2 different owners, and they're trying to do 2
Right.
different things is what they're doing.
okay,
There's 2 owners that they labeled 1 and 2, but A and B are actually, those 2 parcels become under the same ownership.
then it becomes something else other than A
So
and B.
really, yeah, they
That's
probably ought
my
to,
point, my only point is that it doesn't match.
they ought to just call it owner 1, owner 2.
Yeah, or
That's who
something like that.
we're dealing with 2 property owners, but the parcels are probably rightly labeled A and B.
Yeah.
We'll make a comment to that, to the surveyor, to correct that under the owner name, so it's not confusing into the future.
Thank you for looking at it.
Okay, so our motion still.
Yeah, yeah.
And our second. All right, all in favor? Unanimous. Okay, number 7, Nancy Davis has applied for approval of a subdivision on tract of land containing approximately 6.322 acres located at 0 Davco Drive. Property is zoned industrial business development.
Yeah, so these next 2 items are a plat and then a site plan. I put the site plan on the screen just because I can reference it for the plat, but you guys are looking at the technical plat first. And if this is approved, it was needed, it was a needed revision to move on with the site plan approval. So let me explain to you what's happening with the plat. We're not changing the lot, it's already exists. When this property was zoned, all industrial business development and highway commercial to the north, it was one big zone change. It was broke into 2, and the industrial business development was reviewed separate from the highway commercial. They were given different development conditions, and one of those development conditions was a 100-foot green belt easement would be created along the bypass. So what the development condition when it was zoned said is along the bypass, which is the front, there had to be a 100-foot green belt easement. Well, when the plat was originally platted for the business that's back behind here, in the front, the green belt easement was put on Davco too. Is it Davco or Davco? Let me get this.
Davco.
It's Davco. No E. Spelled Davco. We say it Davco. I've gotten corrected on that lots of times. Davco. So there's a 100-foot green belt easement on this side and this side, and the 100-foot green belt easement was not a requirement of the development condition, is not really needed to be 100-foot wide, and would actually compromise some of the site plan development because it would catch a little bit of this travel way and parking. When we get to the site plan, the 100-foot green belt easement is still in place and is heavily landscaped and has become an amenity. So what the plat's doing is simply revising the green belt easement on the north side of the plat. There was not a requirement of the development conditions. The other interesting thing is back when the zone change was done, back in the day, there's no definition of what the green belt easement is or could be. I think we all know what we think a green belt is, but we don't actually have a definition in our subregs or zoning ordinance. We have landscape buffers, but a green belt easement back then, I guess, was a building setback or to be a green area. And that starts here and goes all the way down past Denyo to the showroom, stops at the showroom property. So that's why Denyo's back where they are. So it basically became, in a sense, a 100-foot setback, but we called it a green belt easement. So the plat is simply revising that on the Davco side.
questions? Comments? For a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Wendy makes a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Susie seconds. All in favor? Motion passes. Okay. Now we'll go into a public hearing. DMK and Development Group, Nancy Davis have filed a site plan amendment on tract of land containing approximately 6.322 acres located at 0 Davco Drive. The property is zoned industrial development.
All righty, so this is the site plan we just talked about, and I got the zoning map up first. So we're right here in the corner, this 6-acre tract. And again, you can see the original zoning. This shows you a little clearer back when that zoning was done. This was zoned in one big piece, and then the commercial was zoned on this side and was broken into two kind of zonings with two sets of development conditions. The development conditions on this side that really affect this site plan were that green belt as well as turn lanes to be constructed out on the bypass. There was to be a left-hand turn lane into Davco and a right-hand decel lane, and those are in place. And as you guys know, and we'll zoom in to the next map, this is the property. We already have a business back here, and you can see the turn lanes. And so again, just a short city street, one client, and this project, which would be under our definition assisted living, the clients are here. They talk about this as a memory care facility also, as well as independent living. So it's a combination of assisted living, independent living, and memory care or memory loss facility. It'd be up, the plan is to go right up here in the front corner on the bypass. And it is zoned industrial business development, which is our flex district, which allows commercial, industrial, multifamily, banks, hotels. It's a flex district with kind of some odd standards, but it really, in this case, what we're doing is just kind of one use. We'll jump ahead. This is a conceptual plan that was provided to us early on and was in your packet. And again, shows an attractive building, fairly large building. This is Davco, this would be the bypass, and again, shows travel ways, parking, a building with a courtyard, and I'll let the client come up and explain what's kind of what in the building. But again, in that 100-foot greenbelt easement, we're going to have a heavy landscaped area, a water feature that also double as a drainage feature. These guys build attractive products around the state and have a proven track record, and we'll let them talk about some of that. This was in your packet, the floor plan. I won't get into that. The landscape plan is at your seat. It came in after the packets went out. That was at your seat, and this is just one exhibit, and it's hard to read, but we've got a great big one, and this one is a little rougher looking, and I put it on there sideways for a reason to keep the same orientation with the road. But this shows us basically what's going to be green and what's going to have different materials or mulch, and those are described up there in that box at the top, and again, kind of show the overall property. And what's really neat about this exhibit, what's kind of whited out, is kind of what's going to be impervious: building, parking, sidewalks, and then you can see on the rest of the property, we either got green space, landscaping, pond, mulch material, whatever, but we're even going to have a walking trail built around the pond for the residents. So the revised landscape plan, we've got it, and we'll let them walk through that. But this is a great exhibit to show the relationship of what's really going to kind of be open and green on the property. And we'll go back to the site plan. And again, all the technical items, you can see drainage, the pond, the building footprint, the parking, the relationship of the property. And then Mr. Gooch is here with AGE, and Dale is here too, as well as Ross with DMK. And they can walk you through the property and what we're looking at. But all the technical elements that we look at in the site plan have been met, and those were met under our new requirements that went in effect May the 1st. This is almost a 60,000 square foot building with 80 units, about 78 parking spaces. So there's not much more I'm going to add unless you guys have any questions for me. And with that, and there were elevations we put in your packet also that were preliminary elevations. And we'll let those guys sort of walk you through. And I also put those on the slide if they get up here and want to see or walk you through those. All of those are on the slide, Ross, if you want to walk through those. So I'll just, if that's okay, unless you all have a question for me, I'll turn it over to Ross from DMK.
Please introduce yourself.
Good morning, Ross Oberhausen with DMK Development, Louisville, Kentucky. We are familiar with building senior living. That's all we do, senior living and healthcare facilities. The one closer to Danville is the Harrodsburg project we did with the Eddie Montgomery Steakhouse. So we acquired the steakhouse and tried to convert that to a senior living facility. And I'm happy to be building new construction again. So that was a challenge. This is a product that we've designed. It is a design build. We are doing 3 of these simultaneously. We're doing one in Danville, Bardstown, and Winchester right now. We're looking for other markets. But I want to give a shout out to Steve Hunter. He's been excellent to work with, so he's awesome. Missed working with him in Bowling Green when we did our project down there by a few months, but you guys are lucky to have Steve. The one thing I do want to clarify, he did mention independent living. This will not be independent living. It's going to be assisted living. And under the assisted living rule in Kentucky, it's actually going to be personal care, PC. So all 81 beds or all 81 units will be PC beds. That's a little bit higher level of care that we can provide than assisted living. We can actually pass some medications for those residents. It is broken down within your square and then your reverse L. The square will be 56 PC beds or assisted living units over there, and then we do have the memory care unit, which is a secure unit. If you go back to the landscape plan, one of the reasons, you can move it. Okay, thank you. Out the side right there. On the landscape plan, one of the reasons we didn't make it in the packet is our client is who will be operating and managing the building is Trilogy Health Services out of Louisville, Kentucky. They have over 110 facilities throughout Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan. They're a proven provider of care, and they were looking at and wanted us to enlarge the courtyard canopy space for the assisted living. So that canopy is actually going to be around 40 by 40 or 1,600 square feet. So that's a very large covered area for us, and that was one of the reasons why the landscape plan was delayed a little bit longer. So on the memory care side, with memory care, the clientele tends to walk, and they like to walk and have a nice walking surface. We've given them about 440 lineal feet of walking paths outside. The interior floor plan has wider hallways, so again, they're able to move, but they are completely secure within this environment. And then they have their own dining area, their own activity space. So and most of their rooms are all private. I think we have 23 private rooms and 2 semi-private rooms for husband-wife combo to give them the option for that as well. There's a central kitchen that will serve all the residents. We will provide 3 meals a day, 24-hour care, and 24-hour security as well. The building, if you guys are familiar with Morning Point, it's going to be a very similar business concept as Morning Point from everything you know about Morning Point. So any questions about the operations before we kind of get into the building itself? Yes, Ms. Kelly.
The memory care unit, is that also licensed for personal care?
It will be. Yes, it will be personal care.
It's not a higher level?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So the building itself, it's about 60,000 square foot. It's slab on grade, stick framed. Will be fully sprinkled. Looking at the layout of the building, we lucked out with Miss Davis's property here on just coming in on the 6.3 acres right there on Davco Drive. Mark Dexter was excellent to work with. He showed me a number of properties, and I always joke with Miss Davis that this was the first property I saw in Danville I liked, spent 3 weeks looking at other properties and wasted time. And so we ended up back on this property again, and it fit the whole building. I mean, even the conceptual plan you saw, that was done 2 years ago, and with the retention pond up in that front right corner, it was like it was just meant for this property. So one of the things we have looked at is trying to eliminate let me see which one, on the site plan. You'll see that the parking lot goes all the way around, but because of the impervious surface areas, we wanted to kind of reduce some of that. And
you'll see here that it does go. So all of the deliveries will come into the back. All of our utilities will be in the back as well. We'll have a transformer or dumpster pads back there where it's less conspicuous. We do have our neighbors to the north, which is the solid surface cabinet or granite and marble shop, I believe. There will be a retaining wall, so there is going to be 2 different elevations that we're going to be flattening our property out. I think the mass of our building is going to be approximately 8 feet higher than what the highway out front is, so we'll be sitting up a little bit higher, giving us great visibility, and we will not be impeding any of the marble shop behind us.
Marble shop's to the west, right, not the north?
Correct, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes. All right. So on the elevations, what we're looking at is a couple different options between the brick and the stone. Not guaranteed that this is going to be the finish, but we do like this. This is what our interior designer has been working with our architect on, kind of seeing. So we will have the cover dropped off canopy. As you come inside, I should put a floor plan in there, but as you come inside, the theory, there is, okay, in the back. Here's a couple other, the wing that you're seeing right now is our memory care building, so it'll be covered canopy space. You do have a mixture between it is a faux stone, or the lick and stick stone, cultured stone with some brick and then also some siding, and then we'll do different shakes, and then the roofing material will go back and forth between the asphalt shingles, and I'm trying to find the one that shows a little bit of metal roof on the canopy going over. Sorry to make anyone sick as I go through here. Okay. What I'll explain is, as we kind of come into the building, we have created what is a main street. So you'll have a little library, a little lobby, a little bistro bar. Also, you'll have the dining room, activity, living space, and then the salon. Also with the potential of having a doctor's office, so the doctor can come in, more of concierge service, so they don't have to go out of the building. The courtyard, like I said, we've really tried to beef up our courtyard and create a living outdoor space for them. We have 2 large areas that are going to be planted beds. The area on the right-hand side, you'll see a couple of boxes in. That will be more of a, it's not going to be pea gravel, but it will be some kind of aggregate compacted rock. And they do some raised planters for the residents to have some of their planting gardens. Up in the top left corner is going to be a water feature with kind of a raised planter wall that they'll be able to sit on and just kind of watch. Then you'll see the 3 circles are the umbrella areas going to the lower left-hand corner, which will be our 1,600-foot square covered canopy, covered porch. Off to the far right is going to be the putting green, and people always laugh at the putting green. I was a operator for Trilogy Health Services, and we put putting greens in all of our facilities, and people always ask, does it ever get used? More often than you think. It's not for the residents, it's for the residents' grandkids. So as the resident grandkids come visit Grandma and Grandpa, after about 10 minutes, Grandma and Grandpa get a little antsy, the kids get a little bit hyper, so it's a great area for them to go and run, and it gives them a good reason to why to go see Grandma and Grandpa as well, too. The little driveway we have in the back area, the service hall area, we'll line that with some arborvitae, so all the views coming out of the assisted living side or the PC side, they'll be looking at that versus all the delivery trucks coming. So, memory care side, like I mentioned, we have about 440 lineal feet of walking paths. We will have a covered gazebo of some sort. We do have canopy on that side as well, a couple of planting areas, and some shade trees in there. So their whole dining room area, the dining room activity and living space, all look out into this courtyard. And then one cool thing with memory care that we're doing right now is called a sensory room. And it's a area for them as their anxiety gets up that we can bring them back down as well, too. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah. Even though it's an industrial area in the back of it, have you made any, has there been any thought or communication with the granite company as far as what's going to be on that west side of your facility?
So there will be a retaining wall, and we're looking at different designs on that. The retaining wall right now we're looking at is Ron Foster's wall. He worked with us on the corner of Nicholasville and Man of War when we did that development across from the summit. Yeah. If you're familiar with that wall, it's a beautiful looking wall. So that's what we're kind of looking at. We discussed this morning the potential of kind of curving that wall, giving it a more natural feel with the grade of the farmland, and then also it shortens our wall a little bit too. Any other questions?
Any questions? Okay, since this is a public hearing, is there anyone else that wants to speak in favor of this proposal? Please introduce yourself.
I'm Sarah Volkamp, Shadeland Drive, Danville. I think this sounds great. I'm certainly not opposed to it in any way. I just have some questions, really, for you. I know before you all decided to even look at us as a market, you must have done some research. How big a area do you usually how many of our surrounding counties would you say you'll be drawing from? How big an area?
So, again, we're also browsing on DMK. When we do our market studies and we look at, we always look at a 5-mile market area. So you're looking at basically a 10-mile area that we're looking at. So it is encroaching into Harrodsburg. But we have a formula that says if we can get 80% of our seniors from that area, and then we know that 20% will come from outside because of younger families that are bringing in their parents to live in the facility. So it's an 80-20, but we always look at a 5-mile market radius.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I'm interested because I might be there before too long, and it looks like a nice place. But also, I know it will have some jobs too. But I just think it's a real interesting phenomenon that's happened in our area. To think that this is really the third, counting the Willows, place like this that we've had. And what does that tell us about our population? I've been aware for a long time that many retired people are attracted to our area, and I think it's been great and have added so much. But, you know, folks like me, we're becoming more and more part of this community, and how it affects our general housing. I just think it's long-term thinking that we have to realize what's happening nationwide as well as right here, and I'm glad you all are coming in. Thank you.
Thank you. Kind of build on that, we have a saying about the aging population. It's called the silver tsunami. 10,000 people turn 65 every day in this country and will for the next 11 years. The statistics show that people really don't need our services until 80 or 85. So on top of that 11 years, add another 10 to 15 years on top of that. We also build skilled nursing facilities, and the skilled nursing facility average age in this country is 39 and a half years old. And they're just old, dilapidated buildings. So we're trying to build nice living facilities that people can call home, residents. We call them residents. We don't call them patients. We don't call them clients, but we call them residents because they are their home.
Anyone else want to speak in favor of the proposal? Okay, is there anyone who wants to speak in opposition? None being said, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, Susan makes a motion to approve, Wendy makes a second. All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, before we go to new business, I was remiss when we started our meeting. We have a new member. I'd like to introduce Mr. Steve Griffin to our Planning and Zoning Commission. Thank you, and I apologize.
That's okay.
All right, Steve.
New business? Okay. Normally, you guys see those 3 committee reports. There's no reports this month for advisory personnel or budget, although we'll need the budget committee to meet in June as we get the final budget ready at some point. That's Wendy and Terry right now, since we've had some changes. There's just two-person, that's two-man budget committee. And then the personnel committee will need to meet in June. We'll do our staff evaluations and need the personnel committee's oversight on that in the month of June. So no committee reports, just letting you know. The other new business item is the zoning ordinance, and I just want to, I'll briefly just tell you, this is more an update, what's happening. The plan was to get the second half of the zoning ordinance to you guys this month. It is finished, it's laying on my desk, it's ready to go. In talking with the city manager and some other folks, because the second phase of the zoning ordinance involves signage, commercial signage, everyone thought we probably ought to go a tad bit slower than, well, honestly, I wanted to go, because I'm ready to go. And I was hoping to be on this agenda. But what we're going to do as the game plan, and the reason I'm laying this out is what I'm going to do is we're not going to work through the advisory committee like we did the first half, because everyone's schedules will be tough, and it's a big part of the ordinance. What I thought we'd do is I'd email it out to all you guys, Articles 4, 5, and 7. I'll email them to you so you guys can start to read those and get acclimated to those changes. And then we'll get it to the city, we'll get it to the attorneys, and on top of that, I've already been talking with the sign companies. I've met with them. I can't even name all the different folks. I talked to Tommy Owens, for example, who owns the only piece of property zoned TND that would be converting to a different zoning district. Met with him personally to explain kind of the plan. Next week, the chamber is inviting all its members to inter-county so I can go through the sign ordinance piece by piece with whoever shows up at that meeting. I've met with several business owners on the signs already. I haven't had any negative comments on the sign proposal at all, but I think the fear is that when you get into signs, and I think when you all did in 2012 and before, that the wheels can come off of this and this can turn into a pretty tough debate to work through. We are revising everything that's left in the zoning ordinance, and that's the other part, is when I mail out the packets next month, we are going to anticipate putting this on the June Planning Commission. This is the strike-through section of the ordinance, and if it's okay, I may not send it out to all you guys unless you want the strike-through. I can email you this, probably separately than the other articles. So what you'll have is this is going away, and 3 new articles about a third of the size are replacing this. So I'm going to mail you the new stuff, and if you want the strike-through, I'll give it to you. Now, the city and the county will need it for their official ordinance someday. But if you guys want this, I'll send it or make copies, and if not, I'll just send you the new stuff and have it available if you want to come in and review the strikeout. And you've got your old books anyhow, so you kind of know what the old chapters are, and they're on the website. But the new ordinance will be new names. We're changing the names back similar to the old way, but there's new things. I just talked to Mr. Sharpe before the meeting. We're going to put in some new techniques, new products. Single family is going to change from historically what it was as a zoning type. We're going to go to different single family districts for different lot sizes. We're going to put in patio homes and townhomes and twin homes in single family as well as multifamily, 2 kinds of products. So you could do attached patio homes, for example, under a new R1 category is a proposal. So the idea is to put all the tools in the zoning ordinance for single family that most of the other towns around the country are using. We're going to look at setbacks, landscape, signage, parking, uses, Airbnbs, you name it. It's all going to be in this next phase. So that's some big stuff. And so what I anticipate would happen is we would put it on June, and you guys might table it like you did the last time to give additional time and get it further out in the public. But we'll start it in June, little overview at the end of the meeting. We have to have a public hearing, and then my guess is we'd probably want to table it and come back in July and then continue to give all the governments and other folks to look at. In the meantime, I'm going to kind of do a road show and get out and keep meeting with folks and business owners on the signs to kind of get a leg up on that to make sure we're prepared for what's coming our way. And again, I think you guys have talked about this before, but you know why we have to do the signs. There's a Supreme Court directive that says the way our sign ordinance is worded does not meet the test of our Constitution. And sign ordinances that have specific rules, or again, what has been told to us over and over, if you have to read the sign to know the rules, then it's a violation of the Constitution. And all communities across the United States have been told since 2013, get your sign ordinances fixed. And so again, if you have rules for daycares, rules for churches, rules for fast food, rules for campaign signs, rules for real estate, you can't have that kind of sign ordinance any longer. They have to be generic rules. Again, if you have to read the sign to know the rules, I have to read it to know that's a campaign sign, well then you can't have rules for that sign. So what we're going to attempt to do is have use categories, residential rules, multifamily rules, commercial rules, industrial rules, in a generic fashion. Yeah.
What's the status of things that are grandfathered in? Is that going to be, that has to go away, right?
No, it's going to be a problem, and it's something we'll deal with.
Well, why wouldn't it?
Well, because you
if it's
really
a
can't
law?
just, well, we're still going, everything will be grandfathered in. So what'll happen is with the new rules, every sign in town will be grandfathered in. It can't go away, because you can't take people's rights. I mean, even though the rules are saying you can't have signs like that, what it's saying is you can't have rules like that. The sign that's already out there for a church is already out there, no matter how big, how bright, what
The
location.
ruling wasn't against the sign, the ruling was against the rules.
Absolutely.
That established the signs.
That's exactly right. So this will be interesting, because literally, let's say we have 6,000 signs in Danville. Probably some of them will be fine, but there's a good chance that all of them will become non-conforming in some form or fashion, and we'll just have to deal with that as we move forward with
I
new
mean,
signs.
one of my concerns that I've lived here this long is that there are so many ugly signs that are grandfathered in. I mean, you can go to one street and it's like all signs that you can't even read them because their paint is all off them. And I don't know, isn't there something we can do about
Well,
that?
there is something, and that's what I think is what I'm getting positive feedback on. I'm putting some tools and what I'll call carrots in the zoning ordinance rewrite. It'd be easy to, for example, to leave the signs exactly 30 foot high and 100 square foot. That's our standard for commercial. But by making sure we change some things, you're putting some carrots forward. So the hope is that a business owner goes, wow, that's better than last time. Is on that aspect, I might put a new sign up. I might take that old rusty pole down and put a new sign up. We're going to put some carrots in there to try to do that. And you do that by changing some of the heights and sizes and setbacks. They'll still be non-conforming, but, you know, the goal here is to address those issues too. Consolidated shopping center signs, the ones we go by and you see the little skinny panels, you can't read a single sign.
The monuments, you mean those?
We're going to monument pylon signs in some cases. Wall signage, we're going to change how we do wall signage. We went out and took pictures too. We've got an intern and she's been out. We've taken hundreds of pictures of signs that we're going to show folks and give examples of what works, what are kind of hard ones to read. These are the signs that are very dated, and we're trying to change that concept.
Also, that many of the large businesses, their signs, if you change the ordinance, just from personal experience, if you change their sign ordinance, it could cost them $50,000 to change their sign.
Grandfather.
Well, yeah, but if it doesn't meet the specifications, they don't just stay.
They're grandfathered.
Yeah, they can keep them till they change them. We're not going to force anyone to change their sign.
Okay.
They'll
I just
all
want to
be.
make sure, because it's pretty
Yeah.
costly to do any of that
So
stuff.
here's what we're going to do
Which is
just
why
in
they're
general. I'll email you Article 4, because this is
Yeah,
good
do
stuff.
that.
But we are going to bump up the face a tad bit, because right now the face doesn't work for some strip centers. You know, we're sharing face, and the first guy gets this much, second one, the third one gets no signage. We need to address wall signage in a percentage fashion, and then the freestanding signs, we're going to bump up the face, but lower the height a tad bit as a trade-off, and that's going to try to incentivize new signage. The other thing that is not good with our sign ordinance is we allow signs to be 5 foot off the edge of the pavement. Now, the anticipation is that's a sign on the pole, and the face is out there 5 foot. But when someone does a monument sign, they're 5 foot from the pavement, and they're almost blocking sight. We need to scoot the signs further back from the pavement. That's a very narrow width to put signage and put a physical structure, fairly big pole or a big.
I thought most of them were, the requirement was so far from the property line, not necessarily pavement.
The sign face has to be 5 foot from the edge of pavement. The sign has to be out of the right of way. It's not the same setback as the structure. It's 5 foot. So you can put them as close as 5 foot to the pavement, and we see those on Houstonville Road. So as we have gone from a pole sign to a monument sign, that's why we're getting that bulkier sign pretty close, and you pull out of a driveway, you're almost having to look around the sign. So they're always out of the right of way, so sometimes there might be 20 foot from the pavement, depending on the street. We need to clarify that too. There's all kinds of stuff in the sign ordinance that's going to be tricky. The other issue is, how do we deal with campaign, real estate, personal expression? I mean, I think the feeling is we want to regulate campaign signs, but yet we can't have a standard for campaign signs. So they're gonna have to be addressed under a generic temporary sign standard that catches whether it's a campaign sign, real estate sign, whatever sign, that we put up. This is gonna be a little tricky, so.
You can regulate the right-of-ways, can't you?
We are gonna regulate the right, continue to do that, correct. All those typical prohibitions for right-of-ways and easements would continue. So you guys might take note of that when I send it out. If you got comments, this will be a good period for you all to email me back and just say, hey, what we don't wanna do is get into a 11-person email. Ben knows that would go outside of bounds of our open meeting rules. What I'm gonna send you is the document, and if you guys have concerns, contact me personally so we can talk about a concern you may have in the ordinance. And then it'll be set for a public hearing in June that again, I anticipate we would table as we continue to get public discussion and input. And then I think the inter-county meeting is set for the 29th at 6 o'clock. And again, the chamber has sent out something to all the chamber members. So I don't know if we're gonna get 50 or 100 folks there, who knows how many. But the idea is we would just talk about signs and the sign rules with business owners on the 29th at 6 o'clock. And I may be around in June. You may never find me again after that meeting. I don't know. So, milk carton stuff, I guess. So that's everything on the zoning ordinance, unless you all have any questions. Again, this is the strikeout. If you want it, I'm not going to mail this out next month unless you guys want it. I'll send you just the new stuff.
Okay. Announcements?
I don't have anything else.
Chairman Baird, up here.
Yeah.
Let the record show that new Commissioner Griffin was duly sworn in before the meeting.
Thank you, Henry. All right, with no further ado, I want to thank everybody for being here.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Susan. We have a motion to adjourn. We have a second.
She said,
Yes, ma'am.
Earlier this month, I was at a meeting of the fourth district, magisterial district, and the question came up about short-term rentals, Airbnbs. And we do have a problem in our neighborhood, which we have discussed. We acknowledge that we have discussed it. One of my neighbors asked me if a property owner is in violation of a zoning ordinance, why is that property owner not notified of that violation and something done about that violation? So my question to you all is, what do you do when you find a violation in a zoning ordinance? What is the next step? And we in our neighborhood want to know the answer to that.
I'll be glad to go over that with her and the neighbor, or tell you all now. I don't know if you guys, whatever you want.
Tell us.
Well, we send a notice of violation, is what we do. If we get a violation of the zoning ordinance or a complaint, we send what's called a notice of violation, which is, in a sense, a threatening letter, or, basically looks like a form letter saying, hey, you violated this section. You got X number. In fact, we got one right now that times out Friday. Is that right? Got an illegal structure. Gave the guy 7 days to do something. Call, let's talk. At the end of the 7 days, then we go to the citation phase. So, sounds like I'm being a little sleight of hand, but it is an ongoing investigation at that point. Sounds like law enforcement stuff. But when we get a complaint, we start an investigation. Ultimately, we send a notice of violation, or we determine there's no violation. The Airbnbs, or the short-term rentals, are tricky because there's 40 of them in the county. They technically violate the zoning ordinance, in my opinion, yet they have business licenses, and they're legal under the hotel room tax rules of the community. So we got two ordinances that say this is how we handle them, and you got someone that's in good standing, then you got the zoning ordinance that says it's a gray area, it's kind of a violation, what do? We only talk about bed and breakfasts. We now have a definition of short-term rental that you guys passed in the new definition. But when it's a violation in ag versus GRA versus GRB versus commercial, it's kind of gray. We're going to address that issue with this next phase. That's when we're going to make it real black and white on, here's how short-term rentals exist, and here's the rules. The problem is, some are gonna be grandfathered in. So what we're doing is, that's a violation, and we can send notices of violation to all 40 Airbnbs in town, but at this point, we got the ordinances coming our way, and we're just taking baby steps with this one issue, because it really kind of is gray, and we've got these other ordinances that we need to adhere to. I mean, you literally have a city ordinances, you need a business license, and some of these folks have business licenses, but they're out of line with the zoning ordinance, which is another city ordinance. So which one kind of trumps which one? And should we be out citing property owners when they're paying the tax and they've got a legal business license, but the zoning ordinance is kind of out of whack when it comes to Airbnbs? But we acknowledge you can't find a sentence in the GRA section of the ordinance that says you can have an Airbnb or a short-term rental. So I've said, look, it's a violation if you're not allowed to do it, but at the same time, it's a gray area. But what we do is we send notices, we give folks time to comply, or we do citations. The tricky thing is in the county, we don't have civil fines. So the one we've got going in the county, at the end of the 7 days, we have to get the county attorney involved. We potentially have to issue a criminal summons. We have to go before district court, and there's a fine and potential jail time for a violator. So it's that kind of process on the county side. In the city, we actually have civil citations, so we can actually write a ticket like a parking ticket. But the problem today is Lisa and I aren't named as citation officers in the city's civil realm. So we have to do criminal still in the city. They're going to amend the ordinance to give us civil citation powers in the city. So the city right now, if you have tall grass, they can come cite you, mow the grass, file a lien. Our code enforcement will get simpler in the city once Lisa and I become citation officers under the city side. County's still criminal penalties with jail time. So that makes it tricky. We're out telling people you need to get in compliance, and the fine is $25 to $500. And then eventually we got to get in front of a district judge, which could be a year or two out, as you guys know. So we do this stuff every day, and the process hasn't changed from years and years, the way the planning commission, it's the same process we've always done.
Thank you.
I appreciate your problems with enforcement. It is summertime, we have already had a seagoing vessel brought onto our road and parked illegally on someone else's property. Is our recourse then call the sheriff?
I mean, if it's a parking issue in the right of way, it's not us. I mean, it'd be the county road engineer if it's a right of way violation, or if it's in the city, it'd be the city public works or the sheriff. But if it's parked on your property, it'd be trespassing. If it's parked in the right of way and it's a nuisance or it's causing a problem, it'd be a public works issue. If it's parking on their property, I guess it could be our issue. I'm not sure. Did they sail it in there, or did they? It just landed by way of high wind. I guess it's on a trailer. Is what it is.
I guess that's something we can look into.
Yeah.
We have a motion to adjourn and a second.
Yes.
All in favor of adjournment?
Yes.
Motion passes. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.